to our first topic then. Is the freebie row unfair on Labour? Get your calls in for this one now and we'll speak to you in a moment. We're asking this after Tory leadership candidate James Cleverly, who's been one of Keir Starmer's and Labour's biggest critics throughout the scandal, admitted that he would continue accepting gifts and hospitality if he became the leader of the opposition. He made the confession during a talk with journalist Christopher Hope at the Tory party conference yesterday, during which they poked fun at Starmer pocketing glasses worth £2,000 from Lord Alli, as well as £4,000 Taylor Swift tickets. Take a look.
Will you refuse all freebies as leader of the opposition? He didn't.
Look, the point is not him accepting... No, actually, you know what? I will accept gifts every now and then. Thank you. Is that...
What's the offering? Taylor Swift concert.
The problem is not the accepting of gifts, particularly if those gifts are properly declared. The problem is the stench of hypocrisy, because whilst he was accepting those gifts, he was attacking us for accepting gifts.
Now, Starmer, Angela Rayner and Chancellor Rachel Reeves have all said that they will no longer accept clothing donations at the very least. So do they now have the moral high ground over the next potential Tory leader? Marvyn, I'm going to start with you on this. What do you think?
I've never been so angry and disappointed at the same time. I actually stopped watching the news for a week because everywhere I went, they were trying to make a really passionate and important plea of some sort of sense of hypocrisy. Now, anybody knows that anyone that's doing anything in the public eye, you get invited to things all the time. If that ever got valued, and that I ever got held to account for the free Arsenal tickets that I've been given once, or the free dinner that I went to for a cause, and that got tallied up and said, well, actually, you don't earn X, you earn even more because you're getting these things, and I was held to account for that, I'd be like, this is the most absurd notion in the world. The problem that we talked about with the Conservative Party was the level and the scale of nepotism, cronyism, and corruption that was happening. So to now turn around and be like, you have a box in Arsenal, and we've calculated it at this value, and you're actually earning an extra 250,000. These are not gifts. They're not in exchange. Arsenal are not looking for a favour from the Prime Minister as a result to have him attending the games.
So as long as Lord Alli doesn't ask Keir Starmer for any favours, Keir Starmer should quite happily be able to accept free clothes and glasses.
If Lord Alli turns around and then gets received special contracts, special favours, special access, and all of a sudden now has scaled his business 4 times and comes in as a member of something and gets 300 million and then he leaves and he's got 700 million, these are the types of things that happen with the Sunaks. Their value increased more than double in their time in office. And so now we're looking at what Keir Starmer's doing, at the level that it's doing. It's nowhere near the same. And it's been a complete distraction from the actual work that the Labour Party have done in the first 10 weeks, which, by the way, is 10 weeks. Anyone running a business couldn't turn around that many things in 10 weeks. So it's been an absolute disappointment that this conversation has carried on with the passion and the vim that it has done.
Belinda, where are you on this one?
So I think, well, Labour won the election on a platform of cleaning up politics. Keir mentioned it a lot.
No, they actually won it. They won it in spite of what happened with the Tory party. It's not because of theirs.
MPs didn't personally benefit from their office, to make sure there were no vested interests of those donating. He talked about this, and he spoke a lot about cleaning up politics. And the moral outrage and hysteria from Labour, while the Tories were in power, for all the sort of chumocracy and the donations and the gifts, you know, it's like before the election, they went crazy about it. After the election, they were like, well, they did it, we can do it too. And I think that's what people are upset about. And by the way, Lord Alli did get something. He got a free pass to number 10 Downing Street.
To complete the circle, you would have to see the benefits of that idea of corruption on the other side. And so bring that forth to the conversation and 100% it becomes accountable and it becomes a problem. But saying you got a ticket to the number 10 as an exchange, Boris Johnson was getting wallpaper and millions of pounds of loans. Nigel Farage is the most highest paid MP in the country.
Marvyn,
so he's being paid to do things, and you think there is no vested interest in his position and the amount of money he's being paid to do things.
When you
so
have
as far as I'm
keys
concerned,
to
I think
power,
corruption lives in other places.
And I'm not saying I agree with that. I hated the contracts, the PPE contracts during the Tory years. 27 of them were given to companies with connections with the Conservative Party.
Wow,
so I'm
horrific.
saying clear out all your stables. What is a far better way and far better for democracy is to actually increase MP salary, stop gifts entirely. I was in Parliament in the EU. I was offered gifts all the time. We got paid much more than MPs in Parliament. We got another £4,500 every month just for office things. We got paid £300 just to turn up. We got paid a lot, too much money for the sort of fake democracy, Parliament that it was. But I'm saying we don't pay our MPs enough. We do not pay our Prime Minister enough. The US President gets £300,000.
If you speak to the average person, they say the MPs don't get paid enough. They would literally balk at you because
No,
the
I
cost
think
of
it's
living
a tough
crisis
job.
said
And that may
they're
be
being paid
true,
too much.
but we may be unrealistic about how much it actually costs. If you're not going to get freebies and the taxpayer isn't going to pay for things, how much it costs to be, let's say, Prime Minister. Now, when Keir Starmer accepted the Arsenal box, he said part of it was because it would cost the taxpayer less money. Is that not a valid argument that he's not going to have as much security if he is away from the general public?
Well, in terms of corporate events, I actually don't think there's a massive problem with that. In terms of personal gifts, and buying clothes for your wife and very personal, intimate items, I do think gifts is an issue. We never accepted gifts as MEPs for the Brexit Party, ever, just on moral grounds. And morality has to drive politics. When you have a seat of power, gaining influence and access through offering gifts is a problem in politics.
Well,
Power corrupts.
Let's take Farage then. In the last 2 months, I've seen that he had accepted a couple of gifts. Not many, to be fair. I think 3 in total. 2 were tickets to events. One was a £2,000 ticket to a boxing match. Does that mean that he is potentially corruptible?
No,
is that a
I
problem?
think corporate events are slightly different. I'm talking in terms of actual gifts, in presents, buying wardrobes for your wife, that kind of thing. It just stinks. And actually, the British people are a very fair play society. They don't like the hypocrisy. And I think if we paid MPs a little bit more, but stopped the access that gifts are giving to outsiders who aren't accountable. We don't know the influence Lord Alli has, for example, over the Labour Party. He's paid for birthday parties. He's paying for so many MPs. The questions have to be asked, is it morally right and better for democracy?
We've actually created this system where actually you do need rich benefactors to pay for things to actually allow yourself to not only to get in office, but to stay sustainably in office. That's where the problem actually lies.
Keir's a very rich man.
There is enough, well, in comparison to a previous Prime Minister, nowhere near. And I think actually what we've got to is actually clean up the whole system altogether. And it will take someone like Keir Starmer to do it. He has to use this as a moment of reflection to actually make the adjustments necessary. They have the majority and can actually put those things in place.
But hold on, let's put ourselves in a position where we actually have a Prime Minister who is not incredibly affluent. The last 2 Prime Ministers we have have been incredibly well off. But let's put ourselves in a situation where we actually have a head of state, and many people at home would really like this, who grew up like the majority of the British people and do not have millions in the bank. Now, how is that individual going to afford to pay for their outfits to all of these events that they have to go to in the world stage? How are they going to pay to be at all these large events that they need to go? We want our Prime Minister at the Olympics, don't we? We want them at the Euros. We want them at certain big global events representing us, and we want them there.
But what it comes down to is just how much...
How do we do that?
What it's come down to is how little we know about the actual finances of our leaders and actually what they actually have available to them and what the source of it is. And because this conversation is happening now with a slant in real time, we've not actually logically thought, yeah, but how do you pay for a suit to go to a ceremony?
We do know, because it's actually very accessible online. I find out what Nigel Farage has gotten from gifts because they have to declare it all.
Yeah, but en masse, we don't know that in the public conversation. That's not in the public domain in a way that's very accessible. If you obviously get a freedom of information request and go find that, yes.
No, it's on the website, Marvyn, you absolutely can.
Yeah, but what my point is, the public don't go around searching for that information, so it's not known in their minds how those things are sorted. We're discovering this in this conversation in real time, but it's being presented with a slant of some sort of corruption. This has been going on since the beginning of politics.
Well, the recent
and what we actually need to do is
poll,
review how that is happening and make the changes necessary.
1 in 7 Labour voters, according to YouGov, now regret voting for Labour.
That's probably less to do with freebies and more to do with the winter fuel allowance.
I think it's the optics of both coming at the same time. So what Keir has, I think, made a massive mistake is coming hard and fast down on the elderly, saying to everyone, we're all in it together, we're going to go through rough times, the broadest shoulders must bear the largest burden, and all this sort of chat, only to go and strip the elderly of their winter fuel and look like he's living the high life. He had it coming. They set the rules when they went hysterical over the Tories. I'm not saying they don't have a point, but then to do exactly the same, I feel sorry for Labour.
It's not exactly the same.
And I think that is where...
That's the misleading part.
I think, can we compare the two? Is it like for like? They've only been in office for 10 weeks. We don't know down the line, will they give any contracts to Lord Alli? We don't know that information yet. So at this moment, as we are discussing this, is it the same thing?
Well, reports are coming out about Ed Miliband's net zero policies are likely to benefit his brother's company that he works for, and this is being investigated right now.
We should
and this
investigate it all.
democracy, so it is similar, I would say, to what the Tories have been accused of.
If it's founded.
But don't you feel sorry for Labour voters? They thought this was going to be the big change, and it's more of the same.
We have seen
it's
more
so
progress.
depressing.
The list of things that the Labour Party have done, I actually saw it the other day, and it was like 27 things that they've managed to achieve so far in 10 weeks. And as far as I'm concerned, that's more progress on very basic issues than I've seen.
Yeah, let prisoners out early, kill off the elderly. Yeah, they've done great things.
The most important thing is that when we're looking forward, holding them to account in terms of their potential behaviour, it's great to have the conversation now, but it actually took over every single conversation and nothing else has been discussed or put forward in that time because we're talking about donations which have very easily been explained. And now it's time to move on into something else and actually get stuff done.
Worth mentioning that actually nobody's broken any rules here. Everything
Not one.
was above board and as is. I think it's just a surprise to a lot of people that a Labour Prime Minister is taking £2,000 glasses off of somebody, or just wearing glasses worth £2,000. I actually didn't know they were on sale. So we've got messages online. Do give us a call though, 0207 862 2222, and let us know your thoughts on this. Bob on X says, not the point. Labour have been calling the Tories rotten over this for 14 years, and no surprise, it turns out that they're exactly the same or worse. Well, I mean, that was the interesting thing as well. When you've seen the list of MPs, I was quite surprised to see Keir Starmer at the top of that list. But of course, that was current MPs. So we didn't have Liz Truss on there and we didn't have Boris Johnson. Now, I imagine Boris Johnson's refurb cost, I'm not sure, 200,000 or something. I mean, substantially more. So I imagine that Boris may have actually topped that list if we were talking former MPs too. Sorry, I digress. Mark reckons they should make freebies and personal donations the criminal act it is. It's bribery and corruption to influence policy in their favour or to get access to taxpayers' funding decisions. They should pay the face value and declare or donate to charity. And if we're going to do that, though, and make it all above board, pay them more, do we think that it's viable to think that a Prime Minister can pay for the lifestyle of a Prime Minister out of a wage of what 200,000? What are we upping it to? How much do you think?
We definitely could increase. We definitely could increase. You could also give an allowance for those types of things because it is incredibly important. We would all be embarrassed if we all went to a national spectacle and saw our Prime Minister in clothes that look like dregs. We want that to be something that is taken care of out of the public purse, but at the same time,
so
not to be exploited.
So you're happy for taxpayers to pay for
Absolutely,
suits?
but not exploited and not to be gifted. So by the way, in that sense, I am in agreement. I don't want to see things gifted and that chance to be manipulated. But when we're talking about scale, we never had this level of investigation in terms of Tory finances. When we found out about Boris Johnson's gold wallpaper, we never had 2 weeks of conversations around this.
But we've never had an MP
and so as far as I'm concerned, it is absolute farcical. We need to get back to the actual real issues.
Now an investigation as to whether that wallpaper was in fact had any gold in it at all.
Sounds such better.
Everyone makes it sound gold plated, but I bet it was just the colour yellow. I don't know. Okay.